Hey everyone, welcome to the TechArena Podcast. My name is Kaluka Wanjala, the founder of TechArena, where we cover companies and technologies and people that are shaping Africa's digital future. So today we'll be kicking off a new series that's introducing BeyondTheCode.ai, which is a documentary project that explores blockchain and artificial intelligence, how blockchain and artificial intelligence are being built, used and experienced across Africa. The series is being filmed around the Cardano Africa Tech Summit, or CATS, and follows developers, founders, and communities that are shaping this ecosystem on the ground. To help us set the foundation, I'm joined by two guests, actually three guests: Darlington, who is the president of the Blockchain Centre Nairobi, and Nefertiti Strong, who joins us from BeyondTheCode.ai, and Sheila, who also comes from BeyondTheCode.ai. So to start with, we can start maybe with the introductions. Maybe we start with Darlington and Sheila, since you guys are physically here. You can introduce yourselves, what you do, and then we get started.
Thank you. Thanks for having us. My name is Darlington Baraka for the Kenyan crowd. I'm president of the Blockchain Centre here in Kilimani, where we provide a space for blockchain communities and emerging technology communities to thrive, get to know each other, and find opportunities. My specialty is mostly within community building, especially technology community building, because I bring about 20 years of experience as a software engineer before switching to the community side of things.
Okay. And over to you, Sheila.
Thank you for having us. My name is Sheila Wanjiru. I'm the business developer consultant for XR agency and Beyond the Code, as well as Basics Marketplace. I've been in the tech industry for the last 4 years. I've explored different roles, and one of the roles I'm currently enjoying is business development. And that's it about me.
All right. I appreciate you calling me Nas. That's great. My name's Nefertiti, Angelica Strong, and I am the founder and co-producer of Beyond the Code. It's a documentary series, executive produced by Dr. Ben Gertzel and co-produced by my partner, Saskia Natalie Betts. I'm currently working as the Chief Visionary Officer at SingularityNet, where we contribute to ideations, productions, as well as helping to bring forth artificial general intelligence in a way that collaborates with humans. And so that's what I'm doing currently. Also the founder of XR and Basics.io. So I guess that's relevant as well. Thank you for having us.
Okay, thank you for being here. So we can start with you, Nas, and maybe you talk about before we go to the CATS project, we can talk about the start of the Beyond the Code itself. How did this project come about, and what are you trying to feel in how emerging technologies are being covered?
Well, that's a lot, but I'll start with the first part, which is how BeyondTheCode.ai has become a series that has shot in over 16 countries. Our executive producer being Dr. Ben Gertzel, who is a AI visionary and artificial general intelligence technologist. He was responsible for building the world's first Android robot, Sophia, with Dr. Hansen at Hansen Robotics. Hansen Robotics rolled into SingularityNet about 4 years ago. My partner Saskia and I were launched into the Web3 world, coming from Web2 as a musician, artist, storyteller. We worked as a marketing entity for a large metaverse. That metaverse, like most things early in crypto, fell. And we decided to build an agency around storytelling because we had met some amazing people along the way. And moving into our agency, we ended up meeting Ben. And as a strategic initiatives officer originally, we realized that without story, there's no real way to have adaptation for technology, especially because there's so many stories about how technology is going to take over the world and cause humans to lose their jobs. And, being humans, we also have our own fears. So we just dived in. And through that background of being a musician and also a documentarian, an actress, I just kind of built what I knew I could to tell a very deep story. Once we got into it and telling the story about Ben and SingularityNet and all of his amazing adventures, I call them, because, this man has, been in it for so long, and building in so many different areas of technology, we realized that it just didn't serve a purpose to only focus on Ben, and he agreed. So we turned it into a series, and that series, being coveted by our agency, has gone on to host hackathons, and not only that, but facilitate developer onboarding for Meta, building Meta with Ben, not as a developer, but as a storyteller and as an architect of training. Those mentorships spawn through every place from Nairobi to, let's just say, Addis Ababa. ICOG is a facet of SingularityNet. It was built over 10 years ago with young developers. And those developers and I met, we bonded, and I was able to help them take their knowledge base into places like India, where they were teaching Meta. That became kind of a way forward for the documentary series. We entered India together, and we've been entering lots of places within the global South. So the series itself has an ecosystem. It leverages blockchain. It has a funding component via NFTs, but the developer relations and community impact is where we really see ourselves living, which is why you have these two amazing people in the room with you. So we foster partnerships for developers, we have outreach, and we mostly support the cultural side of tech innovation, as it's seen more so as a human-centered tech, right? So hackathons are community building. We organize, we prioritize ethical AI. We make it accessible. We showcase the empowerment. And we also want to make sure that the underrepresented regions in the world that are always the first impact for technology have a way forward. So we want to create paths of work, collaborative learning, storytelling, and also bringing it back to the AGI space. So hopefully that answers it in a more broad way. But
so I wanted to know, how is it different? How is Beyond the Code different from all the other maybe traditional tech documentaries or conferences that have been there before? And I think Sheila can also add on to that. So you can start with Sheila first.
Okay. Having worked with Beyond the Code, for me, it's different because it's telling the narrative of the modern technologies. I think when people hear about modern technologies, they kind of shift or wonder, what is this? Or people have different opinions, let's just say, but Beyond the Code is amplifying that. One of the different ways I've seen it amplified is through a summit we hosted, which was BGI Summit. It was happening in Istanbul, but we were able to also project what is happening in Kenya, India. And even though it was virtual, we were able to amplify the story through Beyond the Code and put it out there to the world.
Anything to add, Nas?
And thank you, Sheila, for that, because, when you're in the work, it's hard to always reflect on what you're doing because you're so busy doing it. We're built as a cinematic documentary series with video episodes, trailers, fireside chats. We've had fireside chats at places like Consensus with artists like Macy Gray and, people that have sold millions of records, and having those conversations against tech and making it more diverse than most tech, I would say, docs that just focus on technology. They leave the people out. So we're focused on the cultural and personal layer of AI. How does AGI shape humanity, creativity, social, especially around communities and creators connected to those projects, not only like SingularityNet, but like Cardano? Where is AI going? And also, I think another focus is, when you think about troubleshooting, when you think about optimized understanding and clarity, where does that usually come from? It comes from storytelling. But besides that, we're also wanting to understand, how does humanity adapt? AI is changing every 6 months, and AGI, I believe, is here in the next year or two. I don't think it's going to wait. I think that Beyond the Code closes a cultural gap that most ecosystems and narratives don't. I also think that most other docs tend to forget the people that are building the technology, because once you put a human layer to that, it's easier for the world to digest and swallow it.
Shift to Darlington. Now, the Blockchain Centre Nairobi features prominently in this story that you're talking about. So from your perspective, what role does the center play in making this ecosystem visible and accessible to all the builders?
Thank you. Well, the Blockchain Center started because there was a lot of duplication of efforts and desperate communities, all with the same goal. And the idea was, how can we get everybody under one house? There's lots of experimentation happening around emerging technology, and we should be as close to each other to learn from each other as possible. And then it's always nice if you can put something in Google about something you're interested in and you see a physical location that you can just walk into and ask questions, as opposed to waiting for the next hackathon or the next summit that only happens once a year. So we stood that up this year, actually. And the role is really to amplify that community bit, that human piece, right? There's a lot more opportunities happens when you're sitting next to someone and you're just chatting than that person having to remind you to emailed you something that they thought of that might be relevant to you. So just having that community space. And what I'm hoping that will lead to is more and more participation from African developers, African minds, and African future entrepreneurs, because these new technologies that's coming, like every technology before it, the people who build it tend to imbue their biases, their personalities, their local context, right? So the more African we can have participating in these new emerging technology as builders, not just consumers, the more the technology will actually be aware of the African context and what's important to people in Kenya and Lagos and Monrovia.
And so, because I'm assuming that you have had a long-standing relationship with Cardano. So how has that relationship shaped the work you do today with the developers and the community?
A lot. Cardano is one of the very, very few blockchains that has the concept of tax. Some people don't realize, but when you zoom into Cardano, it almost looks like a small country. It has a constitution. It has judges. They're not called that, but they play similar role to judges. They even have something akin to a parliament, which is wild. And so from the very, very beginning, Cardano was designed. It was not a lab experiment. These were people that started with fundamental research, started from the problems and then working your way back, as opposed to having a solution that's just out there. And people, human individuals, were at the center of that. So when Cardano was being designed, one of the thought was, how can we build a self-sustaining financially platform that does not only provide the cheapest, safest, most efficient way for businesses to build on top of blockchain, but also incentivize the continuous development of that platform, not just incentivizing technical people, but almost every other professions out there. So Cardano has a treasury that the tax that's collected from every transaction fee goes into, and that treasury is open for marketers, educators, business development, specialists. And so that's why something like the Blockchain Center and this summit is able to happen, almost fully funded by the Cardano Treasury, to partner with innovation labs within Kenya and in Africa, and as well as provide training and support and mentorship for the developers who are going to be building these new solutions.
Okay. And back to you, Nas. Why is it important for the series to spend time in Africa and specifically in Kenya at this moment in the evolution of blockchain and artificial intelligence?
Well, that's a very good question. Thank you so much for even asking that. I personally have been in and out of Kenya for the last 25 years. One of my dear friends, whose family is actually from Uganda, was the president of Celtel when it was Celtel, back before it turned into other names. And I came to Kenya working on a project with an artist by the name of Emmanuel Jal. And Emmanuel at the time was, just coming out of war in Sudan. And so for me, as an African American, I always want to come home. That's number one. Two, Wambu, who recently passed away, may he rest in peace, was how I got to Kenya. And being there with him and a woman named Kimmy, who was the manager of Emmanuel at the time, I got a chance to see a city in Africa that just changed my whole entire thinking as an African American. But more so to the point of now, Beyond the Code plays a multifaceted role in advancing AI and AGI development, particularly through its work with partner organizations like Nairobi Blockchain Centre, like WADA, like Cardano Foundation, like SingularityNet. But the mission is to democratize and humanize the conversation around artificial general intelligence. Also AI, creating a broader, more understood developer community that thrives through storytelling, technical training, and ecosystem building. So without those things, we become erased. We have no way for AI to have any understanding of who we are. Our story is being told by other people. And I think just to champion what Darlington is saying, when you think about programming technology and you think about who programs it, and then you put that against, history, the one who tells the story is really the one who lays the groundwork and dictates the future. So rather than allowing our story to be told by others, we should be the storytellers. We should be the programmers. We should be the builders. We should be the users of technology rather than and builders of technology rather than just the users. A lot of times when you look at technology, when it first arrives, like NFTs, most people saw board yacht apes as the function of a non-fungible token. Clearly, that's not the function of a non-fungible token. A non-fungible token on a blockchain is a verifiable way of verifying IP and so forth. So I think our point of being here through WADA, which we haven't really talked about, but WADA is an organization that has an imprint throughout Africa. They equip developers and entrepreneurs to build decentralized applications and also helping them with their business infrastructure. WADA is how I met Nairobi Blockchain Centre in Darlington. All of us have ended up in the same pool because I think another thing Darlington said is everybody's looking to do the same thing. So as a documentary series, we want to center in a place like Kenya where tech is actually not only happening, but it's thriving. Right. So when you look at people like Antler and all these incubators that are popping up and, VCs that are bustling around, most of the developers and the young people that are learning technology are typically left behind. They're not leaving their homes. They're not really being hired. So there's a huge gap in the story. And so we decided to get on the ground with young developers, young entrepreneurs like Darlington, who have opened up centers to help other people, get to where he's going. The same with Sheila. When we met Sheila through another very well-statured tech company, Kernel, Kernel.xyz, and a gentleman by the name of Tahir Muhammad, who I actually met in Bangkok at another summit. And it led us back to Nairobi. Nairobi is the place that has always been a transactional place. I mean, I own a coffee company, and I'm not trying to do a shameless drop, but when we ship coffee and bag it, the road is Mombasa. So for hundreds of years, Kenya has always been a trading location. It's always been an exchange place for culture. So you don't really have exchange in Africa unless you're doing it in Kenya. I mean, Kenya was one of the first places, that had these types of commodities transact. So it's natural that those transactions are happening now in technology in Kenya. So it's not necessarily intentional. I always like to believe that things are also spiritual. I think that our ancestors want us to see that we are the builders of knowledge. We've been the builders of math. Egypt is Africa, right? So a lot of the brain power, and including India, we can't leave out these cultural nuances. The only thing that divide us is a person who made the map, right? Because if you look at the culture of India, you look at the culture of Africa, you look at the culture of Egypt, and, it's very similar, even China. I mean, if you think about thousands of years, the only thing that separated us was the sun, right? So I think that what we're doing in Nairobi demystifies the cultural divide. And I think it's people like us that help to demystify technology and make it something that's more palatable for the human race.
It's good that you mentioned WADA, because that was my next question, and I wanted to direct it either you or Darlington or even Sheila. So WADA was awarded the Catalyst Africa production mandate to build CATS Nairobi. So why is that mandate important for decentralizing not just the technology, but the ecosystem leadership?
I can start and then you guys can chime in. I've been working with WADA for a very long time in the Cardano space on different projects because they share the same passion I have, especially the one around mentoring the future developers. We've had a lot of projects in that space. So naturally, one of the goal for this summit is to build capacity. Going back to this idea that we need Africans in the room. And I always tell this funny story of when Facebook got their first high-level C-suite female appointee, and on her first day at the office, she went to the bathroom and there was no women products. And when she went into the boardroom and asked, by the way, why don't we have women products in the bathrooms? And all the men looked around and said, no one ever said anything. Right? So sometimes you just have to be in the room to change a whole group of people's lives because you understand. Yep. You have that local context and you can say something. So that's WADA's mission, equipping young developers to have a seat at the table, specifically within the builder space when it comes to Cardano and just the blockchain and the AI ecosystem.
Okay.
So they were the natural choice. They have the connections, they have the physical locations across the continent, they have people, and they can bring companies and developers together.
Okay.
Nef, by the way, it's Nef.
Nef.
Yes.
That's actually how we. There was a project that Beyond the Code and Singularity Net had put together, and WADA was. I actually met Sam, who's one of the WADA team members, at a hackathon in Berlin. And he and I were the only two Africans in the room, and we naturally gravitated toward each other. And then once we started talking, about a year's worth of back and forths, we created a way to propose something to Singularity Net. I was already working with Ben, and we made a proposal, and that proposal actually was awarded. And through that proposal, we created a pilot, and that pilot helped to introduce education, hackathons, and just programming in general. And I would like to just say, ultimately, Beyond the Code in WADA and the Blockchain Centre Nairobi, Prisma, Lido Nation, all of our partners, we're building a shared lane. That lane is where African builders, they don't just learn about decentralized AI or AGI, they co-create. They turn hackathons and hubs into real stories, into incubators, into living pathways where code to community equals power. So that's kind of what we're all doing together.
One anecdote I want to add to that, because sometimes when people just say we're doing this, and you don't hear the numbers. Just at what we've been doing at the Blockchain Centre, we've been able to train over 60 people now who comes in from uni, gets mentored, get paid mentorship, and then gets to contribute to a real project and can put that on their CV, which makes the application stronger. So we've passed 60 at that number, and we've hired 18 young people that's earning anywhere from 80 to 200,000 shillings a month. And just in the last 2 years alone, we've paid either to those 18 group of people or the attachments and mentees that come through. We've paid out almost 800 USD to individuals in Kenya. So it's tangible, it's real life. There's folks who were coming from one or another slum 4 years ago, and now they're building a house.
So if someone is listening and they want to be part of that, how do they go about it?
Definitely come to this summit. catsummit.io. We want to meet you. We want to know what you care about, how your story fit into the overall story and series that Beyond the Code and Cardano is trying to put together. And then get connected with the Blockchain Centre. We have an ambassador program. The doors are open 5 days a week. We have 1 to 2 events every single week that you can be a part of. That is usually structured around either meeting people or getting connected to opportunities.
And do they need any experience or?
Everyone's welcome. You can be technical. There's technical opportunities. Mm-hmm. And like I was mentioning with Cardano, interested in inviting other types of expertise to help influence and build Cardano. So there's opportunities for other roles as well. But the key is just being connected to the community and staying connected. So when those opportunities come, someone knows what you know. As the story goes.
Yeah. So then we can go back to Nef and Sheila. What is it about the Cardano Africa Tech Summit that made it the right fit to feature this documentary series?
Okay. I think we start with the hackathons. They're doing it differently compared to how other hackathons are being done, which makes sense for us to start the documentary now. And also for the fact that we are heavy on regulation. We recently got the VASP bill was passed and it has now been enacted. Yes. And we are heavy on regulation also for the Cardano Summit, which also makes sense to do the documentary now.
All right. Well, I would say covering cats is powerful because it captures a live moment where African builders, hubs, investors actively defining Cardano's role in the community isn't just being talked about, it's being captured. So African builders, pipelines, strategic moments that will happen, human stories at the hub. And also covering cats just allows us to show people from local hubs on a continental stage. It's a turning point, right? It takes the protagonist in the story of Africa digital infrastructure rather than being a background beneficiary, right? So documenting the moment lets us show how policy roundtables, governance, debates, enterprise, conversations happen, and a commitment rather than just talking about it, right? So the media coverage makes the pipeline visible to the world. It shows how concrete paths from prototypes to summits to incubations. Africa is a future. It's the future. And it's not just a potential narrative. It is the narrative. It has always been the narrative. And so having partners like TechArena, thank you so much. I know we all the ladies kind of bummed. We had 6 people on that call trying to get you guys involved, but you're a leading voice. So our voice is only as strong as the voices that we can bring together. So we're so grateful for this opportunity. Thank you so much for not only giving us this ground, but also showing up and being a part of the African Tech Summit and the Cardano African Tech Summit itself. We have 3 days that are going to be at the Saurit Center on the 11th and 12th. And then on the 13th, we'll be at the Tamarind Tree Hotel, where you're going to be able to come in, have breakfast, lunch, round tables, all types of events. I mean, we have people like Kennedy Shaw, who's the CEO of Rejuve Biotech. We've got Emilian Popa. We've got Beyond just your average thinker, but we've got developers coming in, winners from across 16 hubs. We have a partnership with Prisma. They're organizing these hackathons with Lido Nation and Blockchain Centre and WADA. And, we've got partners like SingularityNet that have been partnered with Cardano since their inception. So when you think about Hodgkinson and you think about Gertzel, these are 2 guys that, unlike most of these blockchains, they've put their money where their mouth is. They're here, and we're representing them not as sponsors, but as people who have been able to build infrastructure on top of their infrastructure, on top of their blockchain, within their blockchain, and within their technology. So shout out to them for being supporters. Shout out to WADA. Thank you, Darlington and Sheila, for being live. And thank you, Mr. Kaluka, for having us today. And thank you, TechArena, and the audience that you've brought to us. Thank you so much.
Okay, it's my pleasure. So, and then I wanted to ask, after the CAT Summit, where does Beyond the Code go from there? And what should audiences expect in the coming months?
Well, we're partnered with a few outlets, and you can always go to BeyondTheCode.ai. We are not the Blockchain Centre only, visual aid. Of course, Blockchain Centre Nairobi, being that they are centered in Nairobi, we hope to keep telling the story. I mean, we want to be attached to these guys because we know that they're movers in the space. But where you'll see us is we'll be distributed. We'll have outlets on YouTube. We'll have outlets on Rumble. We've been in talks with lots of different distributors, but our real goal is to make this a community voice. And having that as a community voice means that partnering with people like TechArena and entities like TechArena within Africa give us the opportunity to do what we're doing right now. So we don't want the series to be a one and done. We really want to live through the eyes of the developer. And just keep watching, sign up, go on to our link tree and follow us. Follow Blockchain Centre Nairobi, follow, WADA.org. Just go in and find out what we're doing. Check us out on YouTube. And we'll be in Africa for sure. We're not going to leave the space. I hope to retire and pass it over to Sheila and her crew. and they'll be doing it.
Okay. So, and how can you say you'll measure the success of the documentary series? Is this the awareness, adoption, policy influence, or what else?
I'm sorry, can you ask again?
I'm asking, how will you measure the success of the documentary series? Are you looking at the awareness, adoption, policy influence, or is there anything else that you can use to say it was successful?
Oh, wow. I would say shooting in over 10 countries alone just gives such a brilliant value for IP, right? Because this is all about IP for me personally as a musician, retired musician, agency owner. I'm all about intellectual property building. And so the narrative lands globally, right? So this isn't just about Africa. It isn't just about Asia. It isn't just about America. It's about deepening relationships. and deepening people's clarity about what's being built around AI and artificial general intelligence. So we've been hugely successful because we've had thousands of eyeballs. We've been in some of the biggest tech summits in the world, from super intelligence, blockchain 2049, consensus. I mean, you name it, we've been there, we've covered it. We've also partnered with a hugely successful podcast series called Edge of Company. And they are our partner for the African Tech Summit. They've recently been taking their work over to Rumble. So through partnerships, I believe that's how you measure success. Being an intricate part of Singularity Net has been a huge success for us, having been as an executive producer. And then I'm also a Sundance producer. I've been in Sundance. The first movie I starred in was with Angela Bassett. So I've been in the industry. I've sold millions of records. So success is measured to me by execution. It's not about how much money you make, or, if BBC has either taken your name and created a series around it. That was pretty successful for me. I was like, ooh, this is pretty good. But success is being in the room with Darlington and Sheila in Nairobi and helping them to expand what it is that they're doing. So we measure success a little bit differently. The money will always be there. Especially if you have the right energy and, your karma's good. My karma's good. I've never had a day, since I was 16 where I had to struggle, and that was just a blessing. So I look at this like I did my record deal when I was a kid. I want to get out there. I have a message, and I want that message to be heard throughout the world. And when I check out of here and get to the next level of life in heaven, or wherever people believe you go, I want this to be left behind for my nephews, my family. I want them to see that I didn't just sit back and let AI happen. I try to give humans throughout the world a chance to understand who's behind technology, what their interest is and their purpose is, and that technology isn't just for, rich Caucasian men who are in Silicon Valley. It's also for women. It's also for young Africans. It's for young Indians. It's for young Asians. That technology will never be what it is without all of us having a hand in it. And lastly, I had a friend of mine by the name of Will I Am. I was at a panel with him in Cannes, and he said something that was prolific. It's like, if you think about the rays of the sun, what else is out there? We've used rays to build so many different things. Like, what's next? And then also, when we went from horses to trains to cars, there were guardrails. People had, rules to the engagement. I want to be a part of building the rules and giving that as an explanation to humanity. Because if we don't understand what's happening and what's about to happen, we'll lose. And we're losing right now to technology because there's only a few people that are managing and owning it. I mean, you can look at all these companies that are merging. Netflix just bought, I don't know if it was Warner Brothers. I mean, IP is turning into one place. You look at Amazon and OpenAI. I mean, I would predict that in 6 months from now, there's probably only going to be 3 or 4 companies that are going to own the majority of technology. And that could be great if those guardrails were there, but it's a scary thought if people like us aren't in the room. So that's how I measure success. Get in the room.
Okay. And for the last question, I think I'll direct it to Darlington or even Sheila. As someone who's building on the ground, what does it mean to have the ecosystem documented in such a way?
I can start. I think Nev touched on the word she said. Of all the amazing words she said, one thing that stood out was concrete. When my approach to community building and onboarding is having tangible, concrete outcomes, right? Those numbers, number of people employed, number of African projects reaching this level of utilization. Picking back on the previous questions about Kenya and why Kenya in Africa. Kenya has always been a leader in investing in the future. Kenya was investing in computer skills when the rest of Africa was going right? And now Kenya is able to compete for some of these global jobs for people right here in Kenya. one of the things we're doing at the Blockchain Centre and with the Cardano Africa Tech Summit is working closely to the Kenya Virtual Asset Chambers, which is a new body that's being stood up to help provide clarity, connect businesses to regulators so they're able to stay compliant. For those that are thinking about introducing or providing virtual asset services to either Kenya or the rest of Africa. Right now on the continent, most people, when they want to get into legally and compliantly into the blockchain space, they either register in South Africa or sometimes, mostly South Africa, sometimes Mauritius, and I know Nigeria has done a lot of work too, but with the virtual asset bill that's now passed, awaiting actual laws, that is the most clarity the continent have seen when it comes to how to approach blockchain in this new space in a way that's both clear for businesses, but also safe for consumers. So for me, it's that concrete next steps. If you're a business, if you are thinking about putting some money into innovation, do connect with the Blockchain Centre, connect with the Cardano Africa Tech Summit, because then it will connect you to the virtual asset chambers so you're compliant. And within the Cardano space, Cardano gives out anywhere from 60 to 100 million USD every year, depending on the market fluctuation, exclusively for innovation. We can connect you to that funding source to help accelerate whatever innovation projects you're working on.
Cool.
And Sheila.
Yeah, so why are you laughing? So for me, I would say it's a matter of storytelling, putting the right story out there. We have so many things happening. We have developers who are already building products that are being adopted in the market. We have businesses that are also adopting this tech. For example, we have businesses that might also integrate Cardano or have already started integrating Cardano in the African market. So documenting it this way, it means that the story is being put out there. Again, it's about storytelling. I think we are moving to a place where storytelling is the next thing in the market. And through the documentary, the right story is being told.
Okay. Anything to add, Nef?
You know, it's just a really special time that we're in right now with technology, especially where we're all sitting. And I've always been about uplifting young people across the world, trying to give them the same thing that I was given, which is just an opportunity. And having an opportunity sometimes can change a person's life. So for us, all three of us, this is exactly what we're all about. We're creating opportunities through the technology, through the relationships, through the partnerships for others to be able to thrive. And so I'm proud to be a part of that. I'm happy that WADA, came back and said, hey, XR Agency, can you guys bring in the series that Blockchain Centre Nairobi has opened their door, allowing us to do events with them and just to build a stronger connection throughout not just Nairobi, but really just globally. So I'm super excited about what's to come in February 2026. And yeah, again, thank you, TechArena, for having us.
Okay, thank you so much. So that brings us to the end of this episode. And I want to thank Darlington, Sheila, and Nef for making time to join us and for telling us a bit about the Beyond the Code AI documentary series and the coverage of the Cardano Africa Tech Summit. So for those who want to know more about the documentary series, you can check out BeyondTheCode.ai and you can keep up with the documentary series. And if you want to learn more about Blockchain Centre Nairobi and the Cardano Africa Tech Summit journey, you can just Google them, Blockchain Centre Nairobi, and you can learn a bit more about them. If you have enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe to the TechArena Podcast and for more stories around this and the Cardano Africa Tech Summit and the Beyond the Code documentary series. Thank you so much and have a good day.